Hello, Trent Dr. Reminder. This is my third playing video, and I was going to start with a little bit of light buzzing using the piano we have in the practice room. So I'm just going to start on a C, do a chromatic scale pretty much going up, chromatic scale going down. I'm going for a tone continuously all the way through, all the way up to the C, all the way down. I don't want my air to stop anywhere through. I want to keep a continuous breath all the way through, and I'm not going to use the tongue. I'm just going to practice kind of doing a siren type thing. So starting on C, which would be B flat for trumpet. Okay, so one thing that I would say to beginners is keeping steady air all the way through, and that they need to push fast air going towards the low notes, because usually when people play low notes they use less air, but it needs to be more air. So that's what I would stress to the beginners. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the chromatic scale going up on my trumpet. So it's going to be middle C to C, the third space C in the staff, and it's going to go open, 1, 2, and 3 with the third valve slide kicked out. Then 1 and 3, third valve slide still kicked out. Then it's going to go to 2 and 3, 1, 1 and 2, 1, 2, open. Then we're going to start over. So that's going to go 2 and 3. The note we're on now is A flat or G sharp, whichever way you want to think about it. But since we're going up, we're going to say G sharp. So G sharp, A sharp, B natural, C. And then as we're going back down, it's going to do the reverse. So it's going to be third space C, B natural, B flat. Now I'm saying B flat because we're going down. So B flat, and I'm going to say it in flats instead of sharps because we're going down. It's just an easier way of thinking about it, especially with beginners. So we were on B flat. Now we're going to go to A natural. Now we're going to go to A flat. Then we're going to go to G natural. And the pattern starts over again. So now the next note would be F sharp using second, F natural. E natural, E flat, D, but you also need to make sure you kick out the third valve slide. And then you have 1, 2, and 3 of the third valve slide still kicked out. And then C is going to be open. So I'll demonstrate that right now. If I had to describe that, I would say the beginning of that really wasn't too good because I started too low. So coming from French horn, coming to trumpet, I thought of it too low. But on trumpet, it's actually a little bit higher. So we'll do that one more time just to make sure I get the right first note. And I start right the first time. Continuous it all the way through. Also, make sure when you breathe and with your beginners, what you want to make sure they do is you don't want to hitch at the top. And what I mean by hitch at the top with the breath, I mean that they stop their air. So when you breathe, it's like, and then they'll stop there, and then they'll breathe again. But what you want the breath to do is you want continuous air all the way through. So even when you breathe, it should be all the way through. Also, I think a crescendo going to the top and crescendoing all the way down is really good at making sure that air is going all the way through. So we do that one more time. So the second time I did that, it was a lot better. The breath was a lot better. The first note was definitely a lot better. I think the volume that I went going up and going back down was pretty consistent all the way through. Sorry about that. And also, I think the top note really sang, and I tried to make the bottom note as loud as the top note, and just try to make sure everything was even. Okay, so now next, I'm gonna go on to one of the 4 pieces, and see my stand height is right here. I'll kind of bring it out so you guys can see that a little bit more. Okay, and with the trumpet, you want to make sure you angle down. That way, they can have their eyes at the conductor, but they're still able to see their music. So the proper trumpet position is like this, as you can see. Right. So you want to make sure everything is angled down. You want to make sure you have your C on your trumpet. Make sure your fingers your thumb is in the first valve slide. Also, you want to make sure your pinky is on top of the ring. That way it doesn't increase or encourage them to use pressure. Also, it helps with dexterity a little bit because you're able to play a lot faster versus playing like this. Like I have more freedom of my 3 fingers right here. So I think that's the good thing for beginners to have. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to play is, I'm just going to play hot cross buns to kind of warm up a little bit more. I'm going to work on dynamics, so I'm going to be a little bit more musical with it. Also, just the recoil of the tongue needs to be a lot quicker all the way through and make all that air even. So the problem with some beginners is that they'll huff and puff each note, but what you really want to teach them is to just use their air continuously. Your air should never stop when you're playing, and you want to blow through the instrument, and that is an abstract concept, but depending on the age grade that you're teaching depends on how you can describe that in a better way. So the one way I would do to kind of trick my kids into doing that is that I would tell them to crescendo. And when you crescendo, you have to keep continuous air moving all the way. And then I'll tell them, okay, now separate the notes that you're playing with your tongue. And I think that'd be a good way to just introduce being able to push air all the way through and make longer phrases. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to play hot cross buns, like I said a little bit earlier, and see how that goes. All right. If I had to critique that one, I would say my air was not fast enough on the first note, and that's why it came out really, really lower than it was. I think musically that was a lot better. Rhythm was really good. I think crescendoing on these quarter notes right here to really kind of make that phrase was a little bit better. Tone was definitely a lot better in my lower register for a trumpet. And then now the next one I'll do is Country Walk. And with this one, all I would say is I would talk about maybe F, since it is a new note, I would have them finger it. I would talk to all my brass players and make sure they understand how F is fingered on their instrument, and the slide position for the trombones. I would maybe just have them play just that note and hold it out just so they understand where it lies on their face and on the horn. Also, a good thing to do is just to have them freeze afterwards so you can see if everything's working properly. If they're 50-50, it's at the center of their face, and just really making sure that they understand those concepts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play Country Walk Country Walk right now. Okay, and that's number 20 on the first packet. And then I'll be moving on to the next packet after this one. If I had to critique that one, I would say that being an older player and being in college, I didn't take every breath mark there because the way I use my air, it didn't require that. So, first thing I would say is with the kids, I would tell them to take all the breath marks because their lungs aren't as developed as mine are. That was my own personal musical choice. I felt like the breath kind of interrupted the phrases a little bit, and it was better to make the entire line a 2-part phrase versus a 4-part with the breaths in there. I think dynamics were a lot better. The first note with my air was definitely a lot better. It was just a really good execution of correct notes and musicality and intonation and articulations. Everything was pretty even, rhythm-wise. And now I'm going to move on to Jolly Old St. Nicholas in the second packet, which is number 32. And I'm going to play the top line. Now, for the top line, we have a new note, which was introduced in number 30. So it's an A. So that'd be 1 and 2 on trumpet. So, moving on from that, yes, it is still kind of a new note, and I would have played with 30 and 31 beforehand to kind of get them used to playing that note. But just to be sure they have that in their head and have that understanding, I probably have them hold it out again, such as this. So. Okay, so with the A on trumpet, it's usually sharp, just because combination vowels on trumpet and most brass instruments causes a lot of issues. So if my kids were more advanced and I felt like they could handle it, I'd teach them an alternate fingering. An alternate fingering for that would be third, because it'd be the same partial, but the tubing is a little different, and you're able to manipulate it a little bit more, and it's usually a little flatter. So, yeah, it just depends on who you're teaching and what level you think your kids are at and when they're ready. But I wouldn't teach them that if they were beginners. Okay, so I'm going to play Jolly Old St. Nicholas, and I'm going to do my best to make sure all the pitches are accurate, and also in the fifth measure, we have a D, so we need to make sure that the third valve slide is kicked out while also playing 1 and 3 for that as well, and maintaining fast air all the way through that. And here's Jolly Old St. Nicholas A. If I had to talk about this piece a little bit, I would say that definitely my upper register is definitely a lot better than my lower register, but I feel like there was a little bit of blip in measures 5 and 6 of going down to that C, but I think continuous air after that fixed it very well. I like doing the crescendo at the end because it kind of promotes them to make it through all the way through that phrase and just coming off and just doing it together. So what I'd probably do is maybe my star student do B by himself and everybody else do A, because I would probably tell that he's more independent. He's more musically independent. He doesn't have to rely on a group setting to play his music. I wouldn't do that with beginners though. I would maybe do them one line at a time, with everyone doing A or everyone doing B. That way they kind of feel comfortable. And maybe after like a couple of days, I'd be like, okay, well, we're going to go back to Jolly Old St. Nicholas and expose them to harmonies and stuff like that. It just depends on who you're teaching, how advanced your kids are, and what pace you think your kids can take that. So the next one I'll be playing is, let's see, where is it? Mary Ann. So with this one, they're tied notes. So with kids, their attention span is really, really small. They don't have a huge attention span. So one thing with younger kids and long notes is that they never want to count them. So maybe I would point out, hey guys, there's a tie right there. You don't retongue that note. So, and just making sure kind of have them clap it, sing it, and really point out some things. And we also have a new note, which was introduced in number 36, which is B natural, and that's 2. So it's lower than the C. So I would go through and just re-establish that note again, because kids, they just doing it about 3 times is usually pretty good, and making sure they understand what it is and what's going on there musically. Also, at the end, we cut off on beat 1. There is no whole note, there's no fermata there, so everyone really has to be counting their part. So what I would do is maybe go like 3 or 4 measures from the end and practice the ending first, and then move on and do all that other stuff before trying to run the entire thing. So, but here is Mary Ann. The first one would be E, so that's 1 and 2. That'd be the first note.